Get up and get out. Get out. Get out.
I have a question for you.
Say Christ is Lord. Say Christ is Lord. Say it. You say Christ is Lord. Get out. Get out. Christ is Lord.
Hello and welcome in to another episode of Offensively Accurate, hosted by yours truly, Atlas Thugged, aka White Boy D Voids, aka another racially ambiguous groiper, and I'm here to tell you that Jesus loves you and Christ is King, among many other rather stupid, unfortunate things. And glad to be back in here, everybody, in the studio. And you can probably hear my voice still. I am still recovering a little bit. But I do feel much better, significantly better. This is probably the longest I've talked in the past 4 or 5 days, even just now. And a lot of good stuff to get into. We're going to be covering, as everybody else has probably already seen today in all of the clips, the Andrew Wilson versus Owen Shroyer. And that debate, I think, spells a few different things out for some people. And I think there's probably maybe the biggest takeaway is that Andrew Wilson is not who many people thought he was, or rather confused by his positioning. I did catch the chat in there. I think it was from Zach Bartlett. It's out of my screen, but it says Wilson versus Owen equals Chuck versus Atlas. I'm not saying who's who though. That is funny. And yeah, who is who? Yeah, I wonder who's who in that debate comparison. But a good bit to cover in there, and I will take some time to cover that. Although I don't want to be spend too much time on that. Zeb's covered the majority of the debate earlier today, so I don't want to step on too many toes. And also, there's a lot more to get into I want to talk about as well today too. So we have that going on. And as always, if you're here, make sure you smash the like button. Make sure you share the show if you can, if you have somebody who needs to be red pilled, or if there's somebody safe enough to send it to in your life. And yeah, smash the like button, subscribe, all of that. You could support me at Buy Me a Coffee down here, send in super chats, whatever you guys want to. I appreciate it all the same. But yes, Psalm 19 asks, so Wilson got cooked? I wouldn't even say that Wilson got cooked because Owen is not the best debater. But I think that says something with Owen Shroyer not being a debater, but Andrew Wilson being this masterful blood sports debater. Somehow Owen Shroyer, just on the substance of his arguments alone, was actually contending. And so it was kind of, yeah, Wilson cooked himself. That was actually a great way to say that. So there was many moments even in the latter half of that debate where I'm like, Owen, why are you not saying this? I'm like, bro, it's so easy. It's right there. Say this. And then he would kind of get tripped up, which is to be expected, I think, for somebody who typically talks one-sided in a one-way connection, you know, on his radio show or there at InfoWars. And then it gets to the debate. So we'll cover that. Now I'll spend some time going into what I think is probably the best takeaway from it, which actually comes from Doomernat. He had a great kind of quote tweet over the clip. I was going to cover a good bit more of it. I would have liked to have more clips to pull, but it looks like they made all of the live streams private. It was a paid event, so that makes a bit of sense. But I was looking even just shortly before this because Zeb wanted me to see some portions of it, and I couldn't even see who even hosted the stream because the video that Owen Shroyer had linked had been made private. So I will cover, though, the bits that I'd seen and some of the reactions from it. But that's kind of the big story of today. Most people are talking about culturally, at least. Wilson, I will say, after seeing Owen Shroyer debate Andrew on this topic, I would be comfortable on this topic alone, being, debating with Andrew Wilson. And here's what I would say, too. I don't want this to come across in any way as like, oh, like I told you so about Wilson or like anything like that. I am a fan of Andrew Wilson. I think many people who even watch me will probably feel the same. Like they've watched Andrew Wilson in other debates, you know, whether it's against some Hebrew Israelite or it's against a woman on the whatever podcast, the more standard format. I have nothing against Andrew Wilson. I do, however, think he is extremely wrong. And so this is going to be me being critical of Andrew Wilson and what I think is a very weak position that he's taken. And if anything, I'm more so just not sure why he's taken the position. So a lot to look into there. And I'll give my, my preamble. Here's my opening statement. So, nobody don't come at me for it. And I know there are some fans of hearing Andrew Wilson, but I do think ultimately this is a very bad look. And so we're going to be critical about what we took place in the Andrew Wilson and Owen Shroyer debate. Beyond that, there was also, Gifted. We got Gifted flowing in here. And thank you for becoming a member, Mr. Groip Gang Flex. Appreciate it. And Smelly Balls with the 5 gifted. Appreciate that, brother. Psalm, Doom Rated, Sicilian, Margoda, all of them. And Appalachian Goys in here. Granola Grin. Some names I've not seen before. But appreciate it very much. Thank you. We appreciate those. We take those. We always will take those. Donnybrook says, I'm looking as employed AF today. Oh, yeah. Is the overlay still loud? I meant to turn that down some. Hopefully it's turned down some. I meant to turn it down. I'm going to turn it down a little bit more, actually. Because I played back one of the streams. I forget which one it was. And like somebody sent the 5 gifted in and it was like, ding, ding. I'm like, okay, maybe that is annoying for people who are wanting to listen to what I'm saying and not the bells going off. But appreciate it though. Thank you greatly. And yeah, I would say Owen gets the W here. I think he gets the Owen by default, given the nature of what the debate was about and what the arguments were being made. And so we'll get into it. A couple other things. We will give a couple updates on the Iran war. I want to spend some time talking about these insertions of the JD Vance. As JD Vance was a never war guy. Guys, he was there. He doesn't want the war to be going on, because there was a article that caught my attention that came from The Atlantic that took a little bit of a insight or an inside look into Vance and some of his recent conversations inside of the administration, and also how Hegseth is related to all of it altogether. So I want to talk a little bit about that. But I mean, what we have today, though, and what the news is of today, and I just put it on screen for you, Trump is now, this is the latest update from the Iran war. You guys get a kick out of this, actually. Let me pull this up here. I think the tweet is from Chris Martinson, and it's really just quoting, tweeting, just being funny about this. But the White House posted this about 5 hours ago. And it's a Truth Social, a repost of a Truth Social from Donald Trump, where you can see here at the bottom, this is the Truth Social on screen. Iran has just informed us that they are in a, quote, state of collapse. They want us to open the Hormuz Strait as soon as possible as they try to figure out their leadership situation, which I believe they will be able to do. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So we're honestly quite back to where we were from the beginning, which is, this is kind of status quo for the war, the way it's been going on. This is what we've come to expect, given the pattern of behavior through Donald Trump and the way he tweets, or whatever you call it on Truth Social. He truths, which is just a kind of a very ironic thing to say. And it's funny because a lot of the comments I've been seeing as well are in reference to like Nick's return. America First came back last night, and that was a treat for somebody who had been in the need of not hearing somebody like Mark Levin or named Loomer, or anything else to that effect, for that matter. And it was funny because most people were saying, so, wow, you're telling me that nothing happened while Nick was gone for 2 weeks? And even I think Nick posted it himself. He said, I broke the curse. I broke the curse. Typically when I walk away, the most things happen, and then I got to recover them. I got to catch up from the back end. That didn't happen this time. And that's just kind of where the Iran war is right now, is it's reached, it's the ceasefire's ended. We're kind of past chapter 3. That was the only exciting thing, was like ceasefire. And not much has changed from what I have, I last covered, with the change of the positioning on who is the lead negotiator. And this goes in between, Abbas Aragachi basically being relegated. Not that he's been removed as being the foreign minister, but he has been relegated in terms of not negotiating with the United States. However, Abbas Aragachi, though, did negotiate, not really negotiate, but he had meetings and discussions with the Russian minister, who I'm forgetting his name at this point, and I don't think he was the only person that he met with. But Russia has been a lot more vocal these last few days, and if anything were to be notable about the last couple of days, it is the fact that Russia has been very open about their commitment to ensuring Iran's interest. And that also comes in addition to, again, Russia's involvement basically for the entire war before this, before these last few days, has been basically playing the same kind of position that any other ally would play, which is not to get involved. They don't want to have any bombs coming at them, but they also don't want to suffer extreme negative consequences. So it's been from a distance, if you will. And even from there, one of the things that they've been continually saying is that they have been offering to take over the enriched uranium from Iran. And this is notable because even when I read it initially, that seemed to be something that would be that would work for Iran, especially if you look at it from the element of, well, if Russia holds it, the United States seriously would not take it to that level, right? The United States would not encroach on Russia. That would put it in a place where I think even the madman Donald Trump would not be engaging with those kind of mad king, making boastful Truth Social posts about we're going to bomb Russia and name it America, things like that. I just don't see it. Although, again, at this rate with Donald Trump and the way that he is, it's kind of hard to tell. So that's what's been notable, is that now it looks like there's a lot more, and they seem very friendly. Let's just be honest about this. If you've not seen any of the videos of this, but Aragachi seems, smiling. There's smiles all around. But they didn't go with it, and Iran didn't want to do it. And that really is where the crux of this entire thing has gone, which is the United States' strategic objective in this was not to get the Strait of Hormuz reopened. It was actually opened before this conflict started. For the United States, ostensibly, their objective is to get the enriched uranium away from Iran. Or if you even go back in time, it would have been that Iran honored whatever the restrictions and sanctions were on them, meaning you can enrich to a certain point, but not beyond here. And we know the reasons of why, there's many reasons of why they don't, the biggest of being that they want it to be a deterrent. They want to enrich the uranium close enough that it's obviously breaking the thresholds of what they're allowed to do, but it's close enough that it serves as a deterrent from being invaded, meaning that they could very rather quickly develop the weapons if they needed to. So this is kind of why they've taken the middleman route, and I think they've taken notice of all of their other friends in the region who tried to do otherwise, whether it was turn over and get rid of nuclear weapons completely, or it was to fight and say no. And they saw the results of both of those, and so they went right in the middle. Seems to be working an effective strategy. And that's where the Iran war sits. Is the United States is unhappy with the fact that the enriched uranium is still off the table in these negotiations, and the negotiations are really revolving around what the United States can do that will make Iran open up the strait, and we kind of go back to where it was a couple weeks ago. And I will say this before we move on to one of the next topics, is one of the stories that's been circulating, and I saw this from Rerum Novarum, and I'm unsure where it's coming from, but one of the stories from Rerum Novarum, or one of the reports, is actually that now they are, United States intelligence is calculating, they say, calculating what would be the consequences if the United States just pulled out right now and claimed they won. And that was one of the last updates I saw from Rerum Novarum just before I went live. And so if anything, I think that speaks to the fact that there's nowhere to go. And we've been kind of in a quagmire for a hot minute. And ultimately, I think it would be politically not expedient for them to do a ground invasion or go nuclear. I think that would ultimately result in, I think, an extreme overreaction, really. I think from the Democrats, from the midterms, all of it. I think that would be just way too much of an event that you would offer up, even as measly as what we've gotten from the Republicans so far. You would offer that up to the left and basically burn it all down to the ground. Basically, everything, as many of them being meaningless, many of them being small and minor, but any of the gains that we've made from 2016 or even just before 2016 until now would be basically all shoved in a suitcase and given to Trump and said, well, this is what the net result of that is. And that kind of brings me to a clip that I want to play for you, which did come from America First, from Nick, because it does summarize kind of what the situation is in, which is there's nowhere to go in Iran. And it looks like we're ultimately going to be walking away with a loss. I mean, let's just say for what it is, with a loss. And what Israel will do with that is yet to be seen. I think there's still some moving pieces in this, and who knows if that is the direction that we will go. We'll see. But at the same time, this seems to be where the Republican Party is, which is we're in a quagmire. And there's just simply it's like, where do we go from here? And this is kind of what the purpose of a system is what it does quote, which is coming from many people. I've been seeing it all over the timeline, but you also see it coming from Nick. And so if the purpose, forgive me, if the purpose of MAGA in the last 10 years has resulted in everything we're experiencing right now, what does that say about the current Republican movement? I mean, I think it says quite literally this method of operation of this big tent conservatism, stuff we've been talking about for some time. But this is what it does. It nets you nearly no results. And if anything, the only results you do get are performative or minor, like I referenced just a bit ago. And again, the only thing I think you could really hang your hat on two things would be one, wow, I mean, transgender, no transgenders in sports, which like who even cares at the end of the day? They like no men and female sports. It's like, oh my gosh, like, now I can like rest easy at night. Now I can find the cool side of my pillow again. It's like as much of like that's the bare minimum. And if anything, that shouldn't even be on the table. That should have been an expectation. Like, of course that's getting done. It's kind of saying like, did you tie your shoes today? Of course I tied my shoes today. It should have been the bare minimum. Shouldn't have even been asked. Shouldn't have even been expected that it would be a possibility of not being done. And the other thing would have been the only really strong defense that Andrew Wilson had versus Owen Shroyer, which is the immigration issue. And the immigration issue is that, well, we're at net, we're at negative, right? It's like a net negative, so the statistics say. But this has always been my biggest beef with it, which is a net negative is still, it's kind of like saying, when we had Biden, you have your house, and with Biden, the door is not even existent. And robbers and looters and thieves continually keep coming into my home. And there's not even a door to prevent them from getting in. So like, what do? It's just it's an open house. When Trump comes in, they reinstall the door, and one person leaves, and about every 30 minutes or so, another person ends up walking out. The issue being though is we need all the other people in the house out. So we installed the door. But across my kitchen table from me is still a bunch of African thieves, migrants, and looters. And that's really the problem. And so as much as they want to say immigration's at net zero, the base and the root of the problem is still that the immigrants are here. And not even just that they're here, although that's bad enough. It's that they're taking advantage of welfare and social programs. They are a massive burden on the state in all of its purposes, the infrastructure. And so the problem isn't that we needed a door installed, although that, again, is the bare minimum. Why would a country not have a door? Again, why would we not have a border? And also, where is the border wall? Still don't have one. We have like a big fence, essentially, glorified fence. The problem is that we need a mechanism that gets the people who shouldn't be here out. And that's the problem. Mass deportations meant mass deportations. When you say mass deportations, the expectation is that the border wall is the first thing you do, and then you throw them on the other side of it. But we still don't have a massive border wall, and we still have all the immigrants inside of it. But this is where you get to the crux of some of these problems here with what you see a little bit between Owen Shroyer and Andrew Wilson, which is he's beating his chest about immigration being a negative net zero. And even if we take that for granted, it's not good enough. And there's been conflicting data and reports on what the actual deportation numbers are, whether it's self-deportations or whether it was a voluntary leave. And it's still largely being conflicted. And again, it's not made easier by the fact that a lot of this data is not being broadly and publicly published, if you will. This goes for not even just immigration data. This goes for even data relating to the jobs market and, job losses, different data like that. So when you see all of this, it's like, but now we're arguing over, like, and this was maybe one of the best parts about this debate, was during the debate between Andrew Wilson and Owen Shroyer, was Andrew Wilson brings up gas prices. And he brings up gas prices in relation to the fact that under Joe Biden, they were like $5.50. And under Trump at the peak, they were only at $4.50. So it's like, Trump's better. It's not that bad, guys. And the reality is like but the problem lies in the comparison. The problem there is that Joe Biden, by all accounts, for most people, he was literally the worst president ever. not just in the fact of what he was doing, but worst president in the fact of even as he was being elected, people were saying, is he even all there upstairs? Is this guy even still with us? You know, I think Tim Pool would always say, or has he been loosened his mortal coil? Like, we didn't even know if it was actually Joe Biden there. And largely when you see the auto pen scandal and everything else, it was basically the state running by itself with a figurehead in it. So, of course. So the comparison for supposedly, in the conservative minds, is the greatest president in their lifetime, some would say greatest president ever, can only get you $1 cheaper gas than a guy who we don't even know was alive. And many would consider was the worst presidency ever. So you just go like, this is part of the problem. And the part of the problem is not that Trump's not accomplishing X, Y, and Z variables. The problem is the promise was draining the swamp. The promise was no new wars. The promise was a better economy. The promise was mass deportations. And none of that's materialized. Some would say that the Epstein files is part of the promise, and I think they would be correct to say that. Although for me, it falls less down the line of priority. Although I think it matters, don't get me wrong. But I think for the average person, they would much more rather have cheaper gas and cheaper food and less Indians in their neighborhood telling them and smelling. And we got none of that. And I think those were some of the weaker points that Owen kind of missed on those too. You know, and I think Owen was. And the funny thing I will say about this, to be critical of Owen, there comes a certain point too where you go like, you talk about this day in and day out for hours a day, and that was like, there wasn't better examples to pull from or better defenses. And I'm not trying to be mean, but I will be honest, there is an element of me that looks at that where I go, I could have done a better job, you know. And I'm not trying to be arrogant. I need to be humble, but there was an element of me where I was like, okay, I'll take Wilson. let me go up at Wilson here. And yeah, UFO disclosure, yeah, which is wild because I'm seeing more and more about that day in and day out. It seems to be just a distraction, but just to kind of circle everything all there. And I want to go to this post. I had to clip it myself because I think a couple of the clippers had it, but they had it in a broader post. I didn't want the broad post. I just wanted this portion here. And so I have my clipped version of it up. So I'll play this. And this was from Nick last night. And I think this kind of says it all in a shorter clip that we don't have to, listen to a longer one. But here it is. From Nick, the purpose of a system is what it does. If all the Republican movement can do is stuff like this, then it's trash. Let's take a listen to this because I agree wholeheartedly. And I think this is kind of a broad kind of diagnosis of the right wing. Here it is.
People say that.
Holy crap. I apologize to everyone whose eardrums I just bursted. Let's pull that down. I'm so sorry. I didn't have any of this checked. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, but okay, let's try this.
What is it? A system is what it does. I'm butchering that, but I've heard this on Twitter from the purpose of a system is what it does or something. Okay, so if all the Republican movement can do is stuff like this, then it's trash, right? Because people like to say, well, one day, someday, Trump is going to deliver the victory. We just got to vote again, and we just got to get it back on track, and it was this person's fault. Look, it's been 10 years. It's been 10 years.
Okay,
if
good. This
movement doesn't build border walls and deport Mexicans, and all it does instead is like enrich billionaires, plutocrats, cronies, Israel, I think that's just what it is. And that's garbage. And it's time to take out the trash. That's why we're voting Democrat in 26. But I don't want to get ahead of.
And so the point stands there with Nick, wholeheartedly in agreement there, which is to say, I think this is why I mentioned a while back, especially with the immigration issue, that there needs to be maybe even some people don't like hearing this because I think they take it a certain way, but that there needs to be a change in either priority or a change of thinking of how do we win? What is the win conditions? How do we do it? And how can we do it that we don't end up with the same entity that we just got betrayed by and stabbed and screwed over from, which was MAGA. And thank you for the super chat from Jacob Winkleman. He says, Owen's shortcoming was he got lost in the sauce. This is your job, and you can't give an example of one Epstein file. I'm actually fantastic that you brought that up, because that was one of the points. And I listened into the second half. I kind of missed the majority of the first half, but I was listening into the second half. And you were spot on. Wilson actually grilled Owen on this when he was talking about the Epstein files and there not being any evidence inside of them and not being anything relevant, and that it's just being used as a bludgeon and people don't know what they're talking about. And he couldn't. I mean, Owen didn't. He's just said there's a lot of things in those files. There's many things in those files. You could have brought up about how of the 200 top most named people, like 179 of them are Jewish. He should have went, if anything of all, should have went the investigation route, which is to say, where are the investigations? It's like, we got the release of the documents, but no investigations has been pushed on. You could bring up Steve Bannon's involvement inside of there, and the fact that he's always continually talking about how we're going to go to prison. He always mentions that, which is funny, and I think if he deserves it, he deserves it. But that was kind of the thought process I had as well too. For someone who covers it all the time, and this is being super critical of Owen. We already said he definitely did one. I think by default he won. But being super critical and splitting hairs, I would say that it did stick out to me. And I say that as somebody who's like, I watched my mom solo today all the way until like 4 p.m. I'm watching and reading news in much as I can, off my phone, or like, I've got my hand on my daughter. It's like doing the Heisman pose. I'm like keeping her away from my phone while I'm trying to read, this article about JD Vance. And then it's like some of these people cover it and do nothing but cover it for every single day, 7 days a week for 8 hours a day. And they have some of the weakest arguments. I'm not trying to be rude to Owen. Don't get me wrong. This is me being honest with the way that I kind of, thought about it. Sure, he didn't do his homework, but he has a better mullet. That's all funny. Because Carmen says, remember Fuentes got you all hooked on Trump. Now you'll all go follow him to Spencer. Sounds like somebody doesn't listen. You could spot someone who doesn't pay attention to the show. All they have to do is speak. And I definitely remember the massive amount of times Nick was screaming at the top of his lungs to not vote for Donald Trump in 2024, when he was highlighting the donations coming in from Miriam Adelson, when he was highlighting the consistent trips to the Chabad in New York, when he was highlighting Kushner's involvement. I mean, this is what happens when you listen to Steven Crowder for 30 minutes a day. You become literally retarded. And, I'm not trying to hurt your feelings, but don't listen to people who are being paid to lie to you. Rex says, who's ready for Project Bluebeam? Appreciate the super chat. Thank you, brother. Thank you very much, brother. And I am. It's coming. It's coming soon. Multiple times I've seen Benny Johnson bring on literally people I've never seen before in my life to talk about how there's this new UFO thing happening over here. And it's kind of killed my excitement for things like that. Forgive me, buzz breath. But you guys may be like me, where when you were younger, you were like, Bigfoot and the cryptids and like the Loch Ness Monster. And it's like, man, maybe there is a chance. Maybe there is a chance. All of that's been killed for me by this administration, by the way. Every single bit of it's just been killed for me. Because it's so performative and it's so predictable. At least for the UFOs and the aliens, it's like, yeah, dude, it's like actually strengthened my Christian belief, because this administration's gone over the top and trying to use it every time they can when something else is going on that they don't want to, be seen by the public, or they want it to be less of a story. So they want to divert eyes and, attention away. It's like, I see aliens, I get mad. I see an alien, I'm like, what are they lying to me about now? What am I being lied to about now? And so kind of killed the little bit of joy I had with that too. I still like Stargate though. Stargate's goated, actually. Funny enough, you guys would get a kick out of this if you guys follow Sam Parker, base Sam Parker, or Sam Parker for Senate. He's been one of these more older OG red pilled guys. At least he's been in the space for as long as I've been in it, probably much longer than me. And he's been highlighting some lady who's been going into detail about some of this, but's been going under the ballroom, and he's been labeling it Project Ballroom, but spelled ball like the evil entity ball, and not like ball as in basketball. And he's been labeling it like Stargate Command under the ballroom. And I saw this tweet, and I got giddy about it. And I was like, listen, if the SGC is under the ballroom. I am a Trump fan now. Let me lead SG1. let me lead. I will take up the mantle of O'Neill. And funnily enough, for anybody who's watched Atlantis, the main character in Atlantis, his last name is Shepard, and my last name is Shepard. So the role was actually built for me. If anyone can hear me right now, if Stargate Command is a real thing, I will drop everything and I will join SG1. I will change my name. I will even shave the rest of my facial hair off. But I will join SG1. For those who don't know, it's a TV series. It's an older TV series. It was like made like in the late 90s, like 1997. It was like the movies. First season came out in like 99. It's kind of campy and it's good. I like it better than Star Trek, to be honest with you. But enough about that. To go to the debate though, let's keep things simple and not jump around topics too much. Let's go back to the debate with Owen, Shroyer, and Andrew Wilson. I wanted to make sure I got that piece out a little bit. Yeah, Commander Shepard. Is it Commander Shepard? I thought it was Colonel Shepard. I don't think he's a commander. I think he's Colonel. Chad Norman says Atlas is going to reboot. I saw you say that earlier. I'll have to check it out. I've not seen it. At least I don't think I've seen it. YouTube enjoyer, what's up, brother? He says, good afternoon, Thugger. You're handsome and Christ loves you. I appreciate that. And Christ loves you as well. Thank you very much. And I'm sure you're handsome too. Or if you're a lady, I'm sure you're very, very pretty, nice looking, attractive. Insert word that my wife won't kill me for. Insert, yeah. Commander Shepard is Mass Effect. I'm positive it's Colonel Shepard. But no one spoil anything though, please. I'm working my way to Atlantis. We're getting there. Okay. Back into politics. Back into the political realm. And but no, going back to the Owen Shroyer and Andrew Wilson, we have this clip, and it's really the only clip that's getting circulated because, again, I'm assuming because they privated the streams and it's paid content, and you probably have to, be a member on one of those channels to be able to watch the replay. I didn't have many other clips to pull from, but I do have this one that's been circulating a lot. And this is from DoomerNat. And he picks up on a lot of points I was going to bring up, and you can see it all in this clip alone. And matter of factly, you don't need another clip. This clip actually has everything I was going to say about the debate all in one. But I will read the quote tweet from DoomerNat first before I play the clip. DoomerNat says, one more thing to say about this clip is Andrew is known for arguing against abortion, but then used the same logic as pro-choice feminist he claims to hate so much. Quote, they are better off dead than potentially being raped. Such a horrible argument. And so here's this. I'm going to play this in its entirety here. But this is basically the only clip that you're seeing being circulated of this debate. But here it is.
We still have control of it. What did I say? In the future, it'll go down.
We'll see.
Why?
I hope
The
that's the
speculators
case.
say the
I hope
same
that's the
thing.
case. But that's not the case right now. And Americans are struggling financially. And now here we are in another war in the Middle East. And we're sick of it.
Are you going to blame market speculators?
I'm going to blame Trump for getting us into another war on Israel's behalf. Yes, I am going to blame Trump for that. He did that.
So help me out here. Can you tell me all of the downsides of Donald Trump killing pedophiles in the Middle East?
First of all, do you know every single person? Were those schoolgirls pedophiles?
It's institutionalized in the Iranian
No. Were the 200 schoolgirls pedophiles?
You want to make sure that they're alive so they can get raped? But that aside, no, of course not. But there's going to be deaths inside of a war.
Okay, so it is a war.
Yeah, I didn't say it wasn't a war.
Does he need
I'm not going to
congressional
quibble
approval?
over the word, even though there's no ground invasion, there's no boots on the ground, there's none of that. I just want
Sound
to
is so
know,
bad.
how is the global interest served? You're so concerned about pedophiles. He killed one of the most major ones who's ever existed since the late 1970s. He
was friends with Epstein.
He put it inside of
bigger,
the
but-
Constitution of Iran that you can marry 9-year-old girls, dude. And by the way, Khomeini,
That's good.
Khomeini,
So-
hang on, almost done. Khomeini was married to a 15-year-old. Perhaps by the lunar cycle could have been 14. His son was married to a 14 or 15-year-old. A lot of his high command were married to children as well. Trump killed all of them without a single boot on the ground.
Great. And I'm sure after we've killed thousands of Iranians, including young schoolgirls and the entire
Pedophiles.
family, I'm sure that the Iranians are going to be less radicalized because of that. So I'm not
Radicalized? What do you mean? How do you get more radicalized than marrying children, dude?
What do you think they're going to
What are
stop?
you talking about?
You think they're going to stop?
No, well, I'm just saying, how do you get more radical? You're like, oh, the Iranians are going to get more radicalized.
So there is a lot in this one clip alone. And DoomerNat's right. And if you catch this, this one portion here, when Owen contends against this idea that, everyone in Iran's a pedophile, Owen responds. He says, so including the schoolgirls of children, all the hundreds of schoolgirls that we double tapped, which not even was an initial strike. It was a double tap, which, I think I explained before, but it is essentially a way of detonating a device above the ground without the ground impact. There's a couple ways you can double tap too, but his response to that is that, well, it's essentially his response to that was, well, it better be that they're dead instead of that they're being raped. That was the response from Andrew Wilson. And that's what Doomernet is talking about in the quote tweet here, which is this is actually the same logic that is used by the feminist, which is to say, well, they're better off dead than being, generally not, being raped, but they're better off dead than, they're better off dead than being raised in a poor family or a bad situation, right? This is a lot of the reasoning a lot of these feminists will use when they're talking about when they are, deciding to have an elective abortion. That's one of the things that they will say. Now, I'm sure that there's a way that you could, there really is no defense of this. And I think that if anything, he's probably going to find a way to try to defend that he said this. I've not paid attention to anything he said after the fact, but I'm sure he's responding to a lot of people, funnily enough. But that's not the only one. The second thing is the actual usage of the word pedophile, where he is, we're not even talking, we're past, there's the dehumanizing element of it, which is one thing, but it picks up on that feminist element of the denigrating of the character, which is to say, like, we are going to denigrate the character. We have to denigrate the character because if you put these people under the category of what he did, pedophile, you can now talk about them in a specific way. And it was more so the tone that he's using pedophile. Where do you see this at? It's with women. This is how women argue. They exacerbate and exaggerate, and they use that tone, that condescending, or rather, I would say snarky or bitchy in certain situations. And again, my broad contention with that is, I will say this, I know I obviously don't agree with marrying 9-year-olds, but it has been something that I don't think I've ever heard a good argument for or against, and maybe somebody has and I've just not heard it. But it's the same way I'll say it was the same thing I said with the Epstein files when Nick was pushing it. And I'm a Christian, so let me say this. Jesus walked and spoke to many people, many sinners all across the land. Well, I guess let me read this first. That's a big super chat. Thank you. Mr. K Ultra, he says, thank you very much for the super chat, brother. He says, according to the Talmud, is a Brazilian can R a girl as young as 3? Are we going to do anything about that? No. Apparently that doesn't, those things don't matter to Wilson. And I think one of the best spots that Owen actually got Wilson on was the are we a sponsor of terrorism then? Owen flipped that on Wilson. He should have drove the nail in deeper, but he kept talking about how Iran is a state sponsor of terror. But then Owen didn't respond in the reason why they have these groups. Owen did respond in the fact that the U.S. responds to these groups. So there's a lot of ways that you could have responded in there. Another extremely weak argument from Wilson, and it almost sounds like he's taking all of his talking points from Levin and trying to make them as palatable as possible. Let me go to this from The Lost Creole, married versus betrothed. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. It does need to be defined. And this is what I mean by it's really hard to ignore the reality that is they were marrying in the time of the Bible as Jesus was walking through the lands of Galilee from, all of the different areas. Where's the story in the Bible of Jesus confronting this man for marrying a child too young? Betrothed. Thank you. I appreciate it. And it's just, and I'm sure there's someone who has a much stronger grasp of theology than me, can maybe break it down of why, like, it doesn't matter then or why it matters now. But that, to me, is the first thing my mind goes to is that was the natural aging. That was a natural period of when women were being married off. Now, sure, maybe the marriages are being consummated until much later, and I would accept that. Maybe that's not the way that Iran is doing it. But to label that as pedophiles when that was how the majority of humans had operated, to me, it was like, it's such a weak argument, and it's such a feminist argument because it just disregards all of human history. So then is the argument, so what's the consistency then? Right? Because then if you would say then, well, no, it's different then versus now. So like what changed? Right? Would you say that that humans changed? It's something that makes people uncomfortable, but it's got to be explored. It needs to be talked about. There's certain biological realities of this too, which is, the most fertile age for females. And not to spend too much time on it, but it is to say, you can't label everyone pedophiles because I feel like there's no consistency there. Because at the same time, you're going to say you're a Christian nationalist. I just look at that and I go, where's Jesus? He's screaming at all of the, not screaming, but, calling out and calling to repent all of these men who were marrying young women. Right. And you would think if that was a serious issue, given that it was the literal tradition, the majority of people it was happening, you think there would be a strong, maybe a robust ability to understand like what's different. Maybe that would have been one of the things that Jesus changed as he, with the New Testament, with the covenant. It's not there. And I don't think you can make the argument that you could make the argument that the mentality is of modern day women and modern day people in general, just both men and women, have been infantilized. We've gone backwards, the Disney adult phenomenon. And I don't know, you could say that that's evidence of an evolutionary change in humans. I think that's more so like an environmental adaptation. This is how human beings will act if they grow up with a woke left in a crazy, in a nonstop kind of woke mob environment, a genocracy that's left leaning. So what's the consistency there? Is it that I mean, this is basically like saying like you're John Smith. You found a stone that said in the year 1948 we found another unturned tablet of commandment that's now saying, oh no, one thing Jesus forgot was actually that you have to be 18 to be married. I mean, it's just like, and I'm not trying to be cheap or reductive, but it is to say I think they're very, very, these arguments don't hold weight. And not to say like I should be one that's arguing for them, but it's got to be discussed at a certain point. And I think we need to have like there needs to be some kind of standard to be defined, because I think there's a lot of inconsistencies across the board with it. And it leaves it open for someone like Wilson to use it as a bludgeon. Pedophile. He said it like 1 million times during that debate. So those are some of the thoughts I have there. Let me go to some of these super chats though, real quick to make sure I don't miss any of them. Let me go back to the top one here from Mr. Moss. I appreciate it. He says, the Iranian is marrying. What's our girls doing? That is very true. Not marrying, marrying and then divorcing, marrying and then getting paid. I'm getting paid. I just divorced my husband. I'm getting paid. And I'm pretty sure it's something like if your wife's best friend gets a divorce, you have like a 70% chance that you will also be divorced. Just like almost like nutty, to be honest with you. Let me get a couple more of these super chats in here. She was only 37, you sick fuck. Dude, those memes kill me. Jacob Wingelman, appreciate the super chat. Jacob says, I'm more mad at the inconsistency within his own framework. Inside the debate itself, he was rabbinical about Epstein only trafficking girls. He wasn't a PDF with an you can't use this screen. And that's what Zeb was telling me when he called me earlier. He said there's a moment that I needed to pay attention to in the Epstein portion at the beginning of it, what I'd missed. And that's why I was upset because I couldn't find any of the actual polls. I'll have to go look later on. But it wasn't on YouTube. At least the link that Owen had, it had been privated. But this is, it was being very rabbinical. And it's wild because he was doing it in the absolute on both ways. Both every Iranian's a pedophile, but also in the absolute that there's nothing in the Epstein files. And it was kind of wild too. You could just bring up, there's a lot of things that should be investigated in those files. And that's really maybe the point, is that there's no investigations. And that's the concerning element, is that there's almost no conviction, willpower, or seemingly desire or hunger to see any investigations. And it comes across as a massive betrayal. And there was a moment that I did catch in its entirety of when Andrew Wilson is literally screaming because you crucified Dan Bongino. And it's like, yeah, Dan Bongino brought that upon himself, actually. And nobody believes him. And I'm still not going to defend Dan Bongino. And I think Dan Bongino is lying. And that's the majority of people's opinions here. And all of a sudden, Andrew Wilson, you would have thought that Dan Bongino was like his twin brother, the way he defended and got angry at Owen Shroyer. And then he calls Owen a never Trumper at one point in the debate as well. Let's back this up. Which one of you went to jail for Trump? Let's start there. Secondly, the guy voted for Trump. I think he said it all 3 times. How can you be a never Trumper when you voted for him every single time he was on the ballot? It's not. And so a lot of these arguments from Wilson were either weak, they were nonsensical, or it felt like he was just grasping at straws. Which lends me to, again, my main contention with this is so why? Why is Wilson taking these positions? You know, and I'm giving him benefit of the doubt because I like the guy. I think he does good work. So I don't want to, give him the criticism or attack him and say, well, I'm assuming you must be getting paid. And it's kind of a hard thing to even say that because he started the debate by giving a little bit of a screal about how he is anti-Zionist and how he's definitely against Christian Zionists. So, and I know people are going to say money. That's where my mind goes. Don't get me wrong. I lean towards that. So how is he compromised? And, maybe with Wilson, maybe it's not even that. I mean, you see the way he acts when people talk about his wife having baby mothers. Maybe it's not even money. Maybe somebody knows something about something like that would really ruin his reputation inside of the, male space, if you will. I don't know. And I don't want to cast any strong negative energy towards him. Because I do like him, but it was really disappointing and just kind of depressing, to be honest. Disappointing and depressing. I think a lot of people felt that way. I know I was watching it basically at the same time as Mr. Moss in the Discord. We felt the same way, like very disappointing. And this next super chat here from Rex, I appreciate it. He says, look into the Neo-Tony rabbit hole. Different people groups mature at different ages, physically and mentally. It's interesting. And again, I think that even goes without saying, even without knowing the science behind it, you could still kind of look across different groups and see, like, clearly different people have different speeds of learning, different speeds of growing, all of it, and this goes more to the point of we're all different. There's actually the idea of equality is actually very, very, very far removed from reality. It's like not a thing that you can find. But I know what you're saying that though. Perhaps there is an argument you could make, perhaps there was an evolutionary change. You could say the mind of the human being in modern day has actually changed enough that it would be reasonable to say that you should move the age of, marriage to a higher age, but again, I think it's a hard sell to say that humans have changed enough in just, 600, 800 years that now we have to completely rearrange and change our concept of marriage, when and how. But sure, someone can make that argument. I just think it's a hard one to make. I think I would need to see more evidence for it, because otherwise it does feel very inconsistent, and almost like he's then also saying all of the men in the Bible, or who lived back then, or lived any time prior to basically the 1800s or 1600s, are pedos. And I think that's a crazy claim, because it's almost in the same vein as saying, well, because I've started learning about Christian Zionism, and now that I see that all of the rest of Christianity has been rather anti-Zionist and anti-pre-millennial dispensationalist, that they must all be wrong, and we're the ones that are right. It's a hard sell. Nick B8989, thank you for the super chat. They say that the cognitive dissonance displayed by Wilson over the school strike is mind-blowing. I used to have a lot of faith in him. Keep it up, man. Thanks. Definitely will keep it up. I appreciate that. And thank you for the super chat. I will say, I'm really not surprised that he said that. He actually had said something similar in a tweet that I do believe he did delete. And I've covered this when it happened. This has been months ago at this point. But it was, and again, in effect, it was relation to, it was the story of the British schoolgirl who was caught on video. And you guys might remember this. Somebody was driving and they're recording her on video. But it's like her and her little sister, they're like on a little hill. And you can see she's like brandishing behind her. She's got like a knife. And this became a big story because the story supposedly was that she was, reason that she was brandishing that was because there was an immigrant who was nonstop pestering them and harassing them. And so she has this weapon. And I believe Andrew Wilson, and I'm paraphrasing here, and again, I don't want to put words into his mouth, but I'll try to recall it as best I can. He quote tweets this, and he said something to the effect of, well, these women get what they deserve, they voted for it. And like, it was immediately like two things were wrong with that. One, if we all understand that women aren't really sentient beings, and they're not meant to be in positions of decision making and whatnot, it's also kind of hard to hold them accountable. At the same time, it's not to say women aren't accountable, but it's to say, and that's what I would be rolling with. It's like women were made as helpers for men. They lack the capacities and faculties that we do. It's plain as day. But it's like it was an 11-year-old girl. What of her has deserved this by being guilty by being born in the UK? That's bad enough, but she deserves having to defend her sister on a hill, now being made into a public figure because other dumb women who are older than her voted for it. It's like that was like a hard one too. And so I think the writing was on the wall. I think, and maybe too, I mean, there's probably an element of this where you debate these women all the time. It probably does sit into you a bit different. And I do find it hard to defend overall, ultimately. And I think I covered all those. Make sure I don't want to miss any super chats at all. But thank you guys very much. I do appreciate those greatly. Bongina. Yeah, Bongina. That's pretty much what he's become. And maybe he always was. Ultimately, maybe he always was Bongina. And so I think that basically kind of covers it really for all of what I had seen from Owen Shroyer and Andrew Wilson. I'm going to move on to a couple other topics here. And I'm sure, yes, I was as disappointed as everyone else was. Trust me, if not, maybe even a bit more so than that, too. And, there's a fine line between not being a feminist and also not gleefully, and not being gleeful when you see an 11-year-old, like, surrounded by a bunch of, foreign, brown, red-eyed immigrants. You know what I mean? I think there's definitely a good line in between there somewhere. That and it's the same thing as like, that's kind of how I feel, to be honest with you, is I don't like the fact that women are voting. And like Chad Norman says, I don't get annoyed with women for voting patterns. I get annoyed with them for being antagonistic towards men. I agree with that. And it's more so like the idea and concept of like they weren't made by God to make decisions. We know this. They're not supposed to be teaching. They're not supposed to be leading. It goes on and on. So when they're put in a position to do that, you can't get mad at them that they failed. It's like, you should have known that they failed. God literally told you they would fail. They're not meant to be here, actually. And if anything, it's more so on us, and with the prayer and with the will of God, perhaps we can reset some of this back. And hopefully I'm not coming across too much as a girl dad, but I think that is actually the objective take. I think that is the real take, which is women shouldn't be voting, repeal the 19th, but at the same time, you can't really hold them that accountable. You can hold them accountable for the individual decisions they make, but for the overall pattern and the overall consequences of it is like, well, this is the world they've been given. They were born in a world that incentivized them to do all these things. All of their friends are telling them this is the next best thing, all these things. And let's be honest, like, what mistakes have us as men made? You walk through life flawless. I'm sure many of you have been to jail before. So there's a lot of things that, you don't immediately write stuff off and hold these things. And again, part of this is too, like, I really do want to embody as much of as being a Christian as I possibly can. And these are things that I've failed at in my life. I've failed rather tremendously. I've actually, if you looked at the majority of my life, you would say, wow, this guy is literally deserves nothing. And how dare he deserve mercy or grace? This guy should be actually probably cast off too. So it is to say, not, there's some elements you need to be held personally accountable. But I think overall, some of this anger towards the women is actually kind of maybe going a bit beyond what it should be. And you guys know me, like I can't stand women, but it's to say, like, I don't hate them. You know what I mean? And it's to be understanding of the situation that we're in. Because if you turn it into this, well, it's all their fault. I mean, like, you're going to get the same response back. And it becomes a he said, she said pile of nonsense. And yeah, World Champion, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. He says, pray for more to realize marriage is a sacrament. And you can stop caring what a government says. And that is some of it too. Some of it needs to be changed pretty heavily, to be honest with you. Like family court specifically needs just brutally just abolished and eviscerated and nuked from orbit. If I had a nuclear weapon, I metaphorically, figuratively, completely hypothetical, I would get rid of family court. It has some good purposes to it. And, I think foster homes and some of those kind of systems are good too. But the whole a random stranger, deciding where the kids go, that's got to be over. Assigning those support, all of it, it's got to be eliminated completely. But enough on that. I wanted to move over to the Iran war and move into a bit more of this kind of more substantive stuff, if you will. And make sure you, if you haven't already, smash the like button, as always. But the story I wanted to cover with, Marcus is here. Nice to see you, brother. Appreciate that. The story I wanted to cover from the Atlantic, talking about JD Vance, is now it's being posited in the news that Vance is quietly and without trying to step on many toes, he's trying to get an idea of actually how depleted are the missile systems. Like, I know you said that we don't have many, but like, how few are we talking? How few of them do we have? So this is the story that was being reported by the Atlantic. And so they say that Vance has been questioning the Defense Department, or rather the Department of War, and their portrayal of the Iran war and how accurate it is behind the scenes. So I have here that two senior admin officials told the Atlantic that Vance has cast doubt on the accuracy, see, I couldn't even know if I could say that 3 times. The accuracy of information provided by both Hegseth and General Kane. Sources also say that he's trying to be careful about expressing those concerns. So the Atlantic goes into detail that he's like literally trying to not step on anyone's toes, but is going above and beyond to try to not make these guys mad, or not cast aspersions. Because again, Vance is trying to not piss off many people. With the Rockbridge Network, he's trying to maintain that 55% coalition. Because in their worldview, if you can maintain a coalition of 55%, you'll never lose an election. This describes the behavior of the disappearance during the Iran war when it started. This describes his weak handling of Joe Kent, basically on one hand, agreeing, supposedly all these stories would have you believe that he agrees with Joe Kent, but none of that was said. And he tells Joe Kent, well, if you don't agree with the president, you got to sign off. You got to resign. So this quote here, let me expand it on my side so I can read it. Quote from the Atlantic says, Vance is trying, the advisor suggested, to avoid making this personal or to create divisions in Trump's war cabinet, the magazine reported. Some of Vance's confidants, however, believe that Hegseth's portrayal has been so positive as to be misleading. So there you get 2 things. So one, it's that Vance is clearly looking at Hegseth. This is a Vance versus Hegseth kind of development. The second is Vance's confidants. The magazine reported, quote, some of Vance's confidants, however. So that means that it is Vance's people who are talking to the reporters. That's who the source of this is, which I think provides a bit more insight into the fact that there are people who are Team Vance who are spilling reports and stories into the media, giving him positive and friendly reports. They go on and says Vance asked a lot of probing questions about strategic planning, but has specifically escalated concerns of the availability of certain missile systems to President Trump. And what would the reason be? I would think because if you're about to be the president, you're also probably thinking, are there going to be any missiles when I get there? I'm all cool for being president and all, but like, am I going to be president? Are we even going to have a military? Am I going to have a defense system if you allow me to, become president, or if I win the presidency? This is some of my first thoughts coming from there. But I'll read a bit more from the article. Officials and outside advisors told us that the use of key weapons, including interceptors that defend against Iranian missiles, and offensive weapons such as Tomahawk and joint air-to-surface standoff missiles, has produced a serious shortage that erodes America's ability to fight future wars, despite an effort to quickly manufacture replacements, The Athletic reported. Vance has raised concern about munition shortages in meetings with the president and other national security officials. So at this point, I think there's a couple ways that you could really take this. I think you could take this in the element of, is JD Vance looking ahead to his presidency? And like, is that literally what he's asking for? It's like, I want to know how bad it's going to be as the timeline moves on. What are we looking at? Like, I'm kind of scared. And maybe this serves to be, maybe there is separation between Vance and the rest of the cabinet. And that's also is another thing to pay attention to, because that would mean then, and we already know there's two circles. This has been getting reported through the Iran war. There are two circles. You have the circle, the inner circle, I would say the tight circle, the most inner circle, which is like the Levins and Loomers of the world going to Mar-a-Lago, where Trump has got his own base of operations. Whereas the other group, which would be people like Besant and Gabbard and JD Vance, are the outer ring, who are left to stay home in Washington, D.C. in the Situation Room. So you begin to think, is there separation already from JD Vance and the rest of the Trump cabinet? Maybe they already sniffed him out? And again, going back to the line of thinking, which is, if JD Vance has never really been Team Trump or pro-Trump only so far as it would help his career, have they sniffed out that Vance is willing to sabotage their goals in the Iran war to ensure he wins presidency? And did they sniff that out? And is that why he has to ask probing questions? Because he's no longer hearing from the grapevine. I think the other direction that you could look at this is this more so in the light of what we've been getting used to seeing, which is we're getting a lot of these IV drips that Vance is like behind the scenes. He's trying to see, he was the one who was seeking the truth, and he was trying to really see what was going on. And they're doing it in a way that's not anti-Trump, but they're doing it in a way that's like, even the MAGA base would be like, oh yeah, no, if we don't have missiles, like that's something to be concerned about with other stuff going on. And it doesn't kind of take on that anti-Trump persona. It kind of brings it back into a realm of, oh, this is a valid criticism. So there's a couple of schools of thought there. And I'm of the mind to believe, too, that I think ultimately, given some of the statements from Trump, that I think that there's an element that they do already have their eye on Vance and they are aware of his intentions. And I think you already know that with the donor dinner before the Iran war started, unanimously, the GOP donors, mind you, wanted Rubio, not JD Vance. When asked about the Iran war, this is about 2 or 3 weeks ago, Trump said if it goes good, he'll take the credit. If it goes bad, he'll blame Vance. There has been a series of maybe smaller, slighter comments that have been made and even reported on in the news that have given me the belief and the opinion that they're definitely aware Vance is willing to make any move. He'll avoid it if he has to, of going full anti-Trump and anti-MAGA, But Vance is in this to become president. He's not in this to see the MAGA dream accomplished. He's not in it to see mass deportations, for that matter. He's in it to become president because he is the PayPal Mafia's guy. So a lot of things that you could take that. And one thing I would add in this too, additionally, this is how the article ends this, is it talks about how both of these individuals are essentially tied to this war, and they are, with both, they'll be wearing this like a badge on their chest, like, I did the Iran war, you know, like, and so depending on how it goes, even as much as far, even if it ended today, it'll still be seen as like having a stain. It will be seen as a stain. I don't think even in 2 years you'll be able to polish it or maybe puff it up enough to make it someone satisfied with what happened there and J.D. Vance's involvement with it. Let me continue here because this is where they rope in Hegseth. Vance and Hegseth both have a major stake in the war's outcome. Quote, several people close to Trump believe Vance now sees his political future as tied to what happens in Iran. Several people close to Trump believe Vance now sees his political future. So now you have it's not Vance's confidant saying that. Now it's people close to Trump. It's Trump's people saying that, if you believe the Atlantic. And I think everyone paying attention kind of already knew that. This is like obvious. Of course you can't wage a war after being the no new wars peace ticket, pro peace ticket or whatever, then literally go to war, disappear for weeks at a time, and then come out of the woodwork and say, all right, guys, who wants 4 more years of being stabbed in the back with what you just got? Can't run on it. It's obvious. Of course he can't run on it. He's a part of this administration. So if he runs, he will be an extension of the administration, meaning he will carry all of the positives as well as all of the negatives. And there are many, many more negatives than there are any positives. So for this. Goes on. Other officials with those involved told us that Hegseth harbors his own ambitions for elected office, even possibly for president. So here's what I'm thinking. I don't think the Rubio Vance ticket was ever a thing, because I think they're on 2 opposite factions. They're a part of 2 different factions. I think what may happen is Rubio will get Hegseth, and it'll be Rubio Hegseth versus Vance and whoever. And that'll probably be the iteration of the Republican primary ticket you will see. Even possibly for president. Now, Hegseth doesn't have a what do you call that? What's that saying? He doesn't have a lick of a chance. Let's just be honest about that. Like, I could see Stephen Miller winning the presidency before I could see Pete Hegseth winning the presidency. It's not to say he doesn't have the charisma or he doesn't have like the looks maxing that could be going on, but I do think overall he's in a much, much weaker position. Rubio signs with Hegseth and they do basically become the assignment there. But what does that mean though? If the idea is that Vance is trying to probe Hegseth without angering Hegseth too much, or to make it seem like Vance is like, doesn't believe Hegseth or is trying to step on toes, as they say, and Rubio is clearly being looked at to the donors as the headpiece over Vance, and Hegseth has ambitions for elected office, I think that therein implies that Hegseth and Vance don't have a strong relationship, but maybe Hegseth and Rubio have a strong relationship. And maybe that's maybe a bit more of what we're expecting to see. So it continues down here, and this is the end of the article. Just to highlight here a little bit more on Hegseth. It says, quote, and this actually makes a bit better of a point, because just like how we talked about how there's the MAGA base, but there's no Vance base, the same thing is true that there's no Hegseth base. The reality is at least with Vance, he's got the backing. Like, at least he has a network. He's a part of like not that it's a good thing, but that's what he has going for him. It's a positive in terms of an asset to win the presidency. Hegseth has what? Hegseth is and only will be is a part of this administration. What he is and has become and is allowed to be public has basically been given to him from this administration, being picked as one of these cabinet selections, leading the Department of War at that. But it goes on, and this is how it ends the article. Hegseth's career depends on retaining the president's support at all costs, meaning that Hegseth will have to appease the MAGA group. His confirmation process was ugly, and some of his actions during his first few months on the job exasperated the White House. White House officials told us that he and the president remain tight. Hegseth has fewer fans among congressional Republicans than many other cabinet secretaries, leaving him singularly reliant on Trump's favor. Hegseth strives to tell the president exactly what he wants to hear. The one former official told us, "I think that's dangerous." So now you see, if Hegseth, his only chance to continue climbing the ladder in the rung is by basically filleting MAGA and appeasing Trump and telling Trump what he wants to hear, well, then that means that when Trump is saying that they're winning the war in Iran, Hegseth is right there going, yep, we're definitely winning the war. I mean, and who knows if he's lying at this point, but he's probably doing it as much as he can to be with the president and be alongside him, being a yes man. But think about it for J.D. Vance. Everyone's waiting for J.D. Vance to do what? To tell Trump what he doesn't want to hear, which would be the Iran war is a disaster. We need to pull out. We need to walk away. We need to. And so then you see that this is at odds. Because if Hegseth is in a position to constantly support Trump and be pro anything he says and wants to do to maintain his career and his ability to jump and climb in the political, well, that means that if Vance were to oppose this, Hegseth has to oppose Vance. If we take this relationship dynamic at its word, the way it's being reported. And I think many other things speak to that. So I think that you're seeing a bit more of a relationship here. And again, not to, but there is a lot more to these kinds of the White House and all of these things ongoing that is personal relationships and the subtleties and the winks and the nods and where the money goes, that it does matter. And at the end of the day, people are people, and so people are willing to do irrational things because they may have an emotional burden or a grudge or they want vengeance for some reason. So there's a lot of things there. So you can't always apply just, base level logic and reasoning to a lot of these things. You got to apply career expectations. What's the next step for them? Where are they going to go? And I think, especially for politics, that's one of the best metrics or the heuristics to look at, which is what's the expectation for this person? Where is he planning to go after here? And maybe that will imply you, and it'll give you a place to look and search and compare things to and have a perspective when you're reading back and trying to understand the decisions that they make and the things that they do and their behavior overall. So that was a kind of a little bit of stepping back into the Iran war, covering some of that with J.D. Vance and the ongoing element of it. Wanted to make sure again too, like I said at the beginning, at the top, you have that, Putin and Iran seem to be getting very close together. Putin announced that Russia would do everything that serves Iran's interest. They came from Polymarket. Putin also met with, and it was more than just the foreign minister, but it was Putin as well, met with Abbas Arghashi in Moscow. And let me just show you this meeting. When I said it went well, let me show you the body language of these guys. Let me put this up on screen for you. Let me grab this here. This is Abbas Arghashi. I mean, it just caught me off guard with it's translated. We don't need to listen to it. It's what we can. Just so you guys know, it's in gibberish or whatever they speak. I have no idea. Okay, so we're not going to hear it. But look at the body language. See this? Look at this Russian. Maybe this is an Iranian, actually. Yeah, he looks Iranian, given their suit. And let me say this, too. I actually vastly like that style. Not the button-up, but the turtleneck and suit. Like, that's classy. Like, that's a classy kind of spin on that. I didn't know that was maybe that's an Iranian thing. I don't know. I just noticed all three of these guys are doing it. But the body language is rather jovial, and so these are some of the subtleties that I've been looking at with, the expectations of if they're meeting and having these discussions. So what does that say? And maybe Russia's going to be a lot more involved than what we had expected. And it might not be in terms of like they're going to start bombing, but it is to say maybe Russia steps in on sanctions. They do things to help financially lift some of their, financial burden. or help with the reparations, things of that nature too. I would heavily expect that. And given the fact that they're largely only, and rather maybe strengthened as of now, but are more so financial allies or economic partners than they are defensive allies. Albanian suits have the same style as Iran, man, that's why I like them. And Iran ties are seen as Western. Oh, they don't wear ties because ties are a symbol of bondage. That's crazy. And it's so true. That's actually so real. It is, dude. What compares to the relief of like taking your tie off? And like your shirt can like finally like rest where it feels like it should be. It's honestly like perfect. But I just like the style, to be honest. And let's see, a couple other things I wanted to go to. Forgive me, sorry, this is the longest I've talked in or trying to do a stream since I was sick, and it's I'm already feeling it a little bit. But as it goes, and I think I got COVID variant Omega, Zyklon B. I got some kind of ridiculous variant, man. It's that's why I felt it was just disgusting. It's Aragchi. Well, when he's in America, we'll call him Master Roshi. Is what we're going to call him. There was a small portion of the German chancellor that said that Iran is maybe a bit more of an international news, but I thought it was relevant. But it was the German chancellor said that Iran is humiliating the United States, and it was just, what more can you get? I mean, all other international sources are positing that Iran is handily winning in terms of what winning would be for them. And listen, I'll say whatever word I want to say, however I want to say it. I'm going to say Abagachi, Tagamichi. He's a pocket. It's a pocket pal. What do they call those stupid games? And so he went to length to say that. And again, it speaks to the fact that really the only reporting that you get that America is doing anything decent or well in this war is from the domestic side. So it adds to confusion, but at the same time, people who are kind of deep down buried into the more domestic, like American media, they probably look at all of the rest of it as like misinformation and look at all these lying sources. And so they're browbeaten to expect this. And you have that too from just how we've kind of expected the way that journalists have acted and behaved and reported on stories, that it's the fake news media. So much of this is very hard for people to grasp, because if you've been the last 8 years, you can't trust a story or anything because you read halfway through it. And, you know, what's the Tim Pool example? Did Trump do a backflip on Sunday? And it's like, no, while Trump did do a backflip on Sunday, it was actually 12:01, meaning it was Monday night, not Sunday night. All these like crazy little stupid things that they do to like lie to you, that it's hard to blame the people, but it was something to expect. Is like, they're probably not going to trust any of it. And they're going to view it as more of a left-wing push of fake news media, because that's what they've always done to Trump. But when it's actually literally happening, it's like no one believes it, because it's the boy who cried wolf scenario. It's the thing that you can't crawl back. You can't get trust back. And sure, in personal marriages and things like that, and personal relationships, sure. Even then, I think it's going to have some level of damage to it. It'll never be perfectly 100% again. But with something that's like inanimate, that you don't have a connection to, whether it's the news media or the government. I mean, I ask this question all the time. Like, what could the government do that would make you trust it again? What could the government do right now that you would go, you know what? I do trust the government now. I mean, it's a joke. Like, everyone's going to say nothing. There's nothing that they could do. So we're kind of in this loss of a position. It's a weak position to even be in the first place, because that promise has already been broken. And another smaller thing is that Netanyahu is got his pardon denied. And we've been following that a little bit, given the fact that his election, as long as they don't hold a snap election, his election will be happening in the end of October. But the whole time, though, he's been requesting a pardon. And the Israeli president denied that. And the Israeli president actually wants him to, at the bare minimum, take a plea deal and admit the fault. But this has been something that Trump has been begging for. He's been asking for pardons, every other Truth Social post, especially before the Iran war started. Very much less so now. I think that's obviously very bad optics, given the current iteration of the war here. And, you know, so we'll see what happens with that. I think that's something to pay attention to, given the fact that its relevancy on the JD Vance kind of scenario and its connection and relationship to this Rockbridge network, this containment right, this group of individuals made up by Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson. And I'm forgetting one. There's a major one I'm not thinking of. You also have like Dave Smith in there as well too. And one thing we might get into a little bit later is there's now a bit of a beef between Dave Smith and Dan Bilzerian. And Dan Bilzerian apparently was pretty irritated because he was expecting, I guess, that they were going to be able to debate or have a conversation. I don't know what the format would have been, but they were going back and forth at each other pretty heavily yesterday. Today, that's Jake Shields and Andrew Wilson, mind you. There's some crazy videos going around today. I thought about playing one, but I like Wilson enough that I'm not going to play it on here. But there is a crazy video of Andrew Wilson with his children and Rachel being a baby mama that is wild. And it was posted by Jake Shields, I do believe. So had that was a little crazy. I don't want to play it just out of respect for Andrew Wilson and and Rachel, to be honest with you. Yeah, with his black kids. I don't even know if they're black or not, to be honest with you. I don't know. I just know that they're not his. And and so we also have the White House correspondent dinner. And I'm going to be honest with you. I felt the same way as Nick, but didn't say it. And I added it to my outline. But like, what is this? What is the White House? What is this shooting? And to be fair, when it happened and the day it happened, I was like in bed going, so I missed it. I actually was reading up on it well after the fact. And so I was kind of feel like I'm probably still missing pieces and portions of it. But like, I don't want to put my tinfoil hat on, but holy F, like this might be the most, like the least rabbit hole of all time. It's like a rabbit hole, but it's 2 feet deep. And the rabbit hole is that they feigned all of this to ensure they could get the funding for the ballroom. And I don't know how true this is, but I read somewhere that the ballroom, there was an injunction or some kind of court order placed against it that it couldn't be built or couldn't get funding or something to that effect because it wasn't like safe enough, or they needed to prove a reasoning for why it needed a necessity for why. And then all of a sudden it's like, then you have this big safety incident and now they're all saying, well, this is why we need the ballroom. So is that it? I mean, Occam's razor would say that's it. Occam's razor would say that's the simplest solution. It makes the most sense. But now all these things are going like off the wall. Like I saw apparently the shooter, who I believe his name is Cole Allen, he literally looks like the guy who played for UNC, quite frankly, like this light-skinned guy, who I believe his name is also something Allen. And he looks like this super weirdo. He looks like he's going to come to my door and invite me to a non-denominational church that, has a woman pastor. You know the types. And he doesn't even really seem that crazy, to be honest with you. The video of him was wild. I will say that. I've also seen video that looks like it's AI altered. I saw that from Jesse on Fire, actually, at the beginning of the video. The way that the poster board gets manipulated, but who knows if that's fake video, what to even believe anymore. And I'm not rich enough to have a nonstop AI content detector running on my feed and everything I look at. So sometimes you guys got to use your best guess. And I mean, I guess like I wanted to ask you guys, like, is that what we're thinking? Like, was this a staged event? Nick came out and said, does anyone not care? Does anyone just else not really care about this? And it's true. And it's kind of old news. And I think if anything, the best point that was made was from Nick, and again, coming from last night, which is, and many others made the same point too. But it's to say, what if he would have had something stronger than like a shotgun? What if he did all of that, but he had, some kind of explosive or IED? Would have been a lot more damage than that. I think one of the captions on a viral post that I ended up seeing was also saying, like, if this guy wasn't an idiot, he could have just eliminated the entire executive branch. So there are some things like that where you do think about it. Because I can't imagine there'd be a world where I would commit to doing something. Well, then again, all hypothetical, all completely hypothetical. We're just going to talk. We're just engaging with a thought. But in a world, say in a world where somebody does go to the lengths to think and obsess about it and then do it, would you not have done the most meticulous preparation and thinking out and aligning, you know what I mean? Like, would you not have gone the Dexter route? Maybe that's the white man in me speaking. Like, I would do it right. But that's where my mind goes. Is it's like, wouldn't he have not just gotten away with as much as he possibly could have? There's so many things to it. And again, it seems like all of these cases are like this, where you just like, it just feels like it's crazy. And it's crazy to even fall down the rabbit holes. And sorry, my ear's literally on fire. I have no idea why that's happening. But looks like they'll be getting the ballroom. And I'm kind of excited because if Stargate Command is down there, like I will be there. I will be there. Take me to planet PX4 989. Take me there now. And just joking. But who knows? I mean, what is going to be in that ballroom? And I think the speculation, forgive me, I'm dying. Speculation has been that it would be related to AI for something like that, whether it's a data center or maybe this is where the Palantir command center will be. This is where they decide if you're anti-Semitic and they send a predator drone to your house. We're keeping the peace, guys. We're just bombing all of the anti-Semites around the country. Maybe that's the direction it goes. Maybe it is. Maybe it is just something. And maybe it is just something stupid. You know, maybe it is just another performative, stupid thing. And it is just a rather expensive, big, white, pearly gate ballroom that is just meant to maybe, and maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's more of an enrichment. And maybe the reason why they're so intent on doing it is because they intend to hand these contracts to a company that Eric Trump's son owns and that Donald Trump's best friend and then Howard Lutnick's kids actually also own this other portion of this construction contracting company, and they'll get, it could be something like that. Overall, I mean, it seems nefarious, and there's clearly something to it given the fact that it was like 2 hours after the shooting, every single MAGA glazer that exists posted something about it. You know, the COVID thing was crazy, right? You know, on the COVID wall, it was like, well, look at all these identical tweets. But then you see the ballroom wall and you're like, it's like, who? It's like trying to compare a rat to the Leviathan. It was like, oh my gosh, there's like every account on X that's ever posted tweeted about the ballroom yesterday. Clearly there's something to it. How relevant and important is it? Unsure. But I think, again, Nick said it best. This is in lockstep with everything else the administration has done. More concerned about the ballroom than arresting anybody that should not be in this country, or that is a violent individual who shouldn't be in this country, or setting a standard, or actually even acting on anything that they actually speak about. We can't let the left get in control because they're going to destroy the country. So here's why we're not going to arrest any of them. We're going to, oh, that's right, we're going to indict Comey again for the second time because he posted a picture of 4 digits. And it's like, okay, you know what? Fine. Sure, that's something. But I'm tired of having to say that. I'm tired of having to say, oh, at least it's something. At least it's something. And who cares about the ballroom at all? What serious person in MAGA sits there and goes, the ballroom is what we needed and what we wanted? Harrison Smith had a good bit earlier today where he was like, you know what, guys? I have to be honest. Trump's finally delivering on the 2 things I asked for. I wanted war with Iran and the ballroom. And it's just such a joke. It's just such a joke. And I think, and here's the thing too. It's as easy as this. When I go outside my house and I got to go to Walmart and I go to the gym and I go home, or I do anything. I do all the things that I did 10 years ago, 7 years ago. I'm just living life as an American. Not an ounce of this in this era through the entire administration so far has felt meaningfully different at all from anything that happened under Biden's presidency. What's really different, actually? Besides the colors are red. I think that Jews have more power. I think that's what I would say is different, actually. What could you hang your hat on? We're at war. Actually, that is right. We're at war. We were, I felt like we were under less wars under Biden. You know, we still had conflicts per se. The Ukraine war is a huge one, but we're still in the Ukraine war now, and with seemingly no intent to make it stop. And what's funny about this actually is that there's actually going to be tensions. There are tensions between Ukraine and Israel right now because Israel purchased, I think it was fertilizer. It was either fertilizer or food. I think it was fertilizer. They bought some kind of resource from Russia, but the only reason that Russia had it was because they took it from Ukraine. So Israel was buying supplies from Russia that Russia warred with Ukraine for. And so I saw a report about that was going to add some tensions to them. And surely it would, obviously. I think that goes without saying. Let me not miss a super chat here. This is from Michael Crawford, 5650. Andrew Wilson got no motion. Thinks he knows everything. Chud Maxer needs to smoke another cig and chill out. Audience full of chuds. And I do have to say, that's the side of the stream I watched through. I watched on the Crucibles YouTube channel. Forgive me, I don't know why camera's shaking. I watched through the Crucibles YouTube channel, and it was a bunch of chuds. It was a bunch of guys in the comments saying like, wow, do they think Jews run everything? Wow, this guy's just Israel derangement syndrome. It's like, when you sound like Tim Pool, you're probably a raging homosexual. If any, I mean, even in the slightest sense, you could even be halfway misconstrued as saying something or coming across in appearance as Tim Pool. You are more than likely someone who prefers 9-inch sex toys deeply embedded in body parts that they should not be. And gotta be honest, it did rub me the wrong way, because if that is the audience he has cultivated, is a bunch of John Goyles, essentially, well, then he's ultimately, the purpose of a system is what it does. And if everything Andrew Wilson has done has led him to this moment, then perhaps Andrew Wilson was ultimately here in the here now has become meaningless. And in fact, if he makes himself an obstacle, well, now you're just an enemy. Not to say an enemy on all things, but if you're going to sit here and stand in the way of this, defend this administration just because you're getting paid, I mean, and I don't want to say that he is, I'm not going to make that accusation, but for whatever reason, he's got this kind of odd positioning here that you wouldn't expect. Well, then I guess we got to get you out of the way now, and you got to go. And hopefully you can be convinced. And I think, you know what, this is what I wanted to say earlier too, but this is kind of where I'm at with it. I would like to see, I think a Nick Fuentes and Andrew Wilson debate would be someone big enough for Nick to want to do the debate. And I want to see it. I want to see Andrew Wilson give that same argument to Nick. I want to see how that goes for him. Somebody who's a bit quicker and a bit more able to debate than Owen. It's not to say Owen's bad in any way, but I think he's a lot more built for the broadcasting than he is the debating. So it would be cool to see that. Nick versus Shroyer, or Nick versus Wilson, forgive me. I'm sure this probably already calls for it, right? Who do you go? Who's next? Maybe Dave Smith, actually. I could see Dave Smith taking Owen Shroyer's position, but it wouldn't be nearly as hardcore as where Owen Shroyer was coming from. And speaking of that too, I would like to also see Dave Smith and Dan Bilzerian debate or discuss. Given the fact that Dan Bilzerian's been pretty heavily laying on the accusations of Dave being a subversive Jew. I'd like to see that. Would like to see that. And yeah, but if you didn't miss it, this is probably one of the bigger stories in like mainstream conservatism, but it is this Comey got indicted for supposedly the photo he posted while he was on vacation. It was with the seashells, I do believe, and it was like 8647, which, you know, to explain for people who might not be understanding, is the 86 is a rather loose, not every restaurant uses it, but most do. 286 is to get rid of, to cancel. And in that context, it would have been taken as, well, 8647. Well, if 86 is to cancel and 47 is a stand-in for the president, Trump's the 47th president, well, then they must mean and imply to, you know, get rid of Trump. And they're probably going to attach onto it the most nefarious and villainous connotations to it you would expect. I really don't care anymore. Those are the stories that you see where it makes you like, that's when I sit there and I think like, do I want to just stream Fortnite? Do I want to just throw it all down the hill and just not do this anymore? Because you see stuff like that and you go, why is it being posted? I don't care. Tag me when the noon bells hit and they're walking him out with the hood on and they're getting ready to publicly do it to him. Then tag me. But what keeps happening is more of this, everybody knows and nothing happens. Everybody knows, nothing happens. Oh, hey, I'm Nick Shirley. Hey, nice to meet you. Did you know about these 18 bajillion Somalians who literally smoke meth and get free money for just being black with weird heads? I didn't know that. That's crazy. What are you telling me? What's being done about it? Well, that's about all we can do. And now that you know, I will tell you about this other group over here. You know this Orthodox Jewish community that has all their buses paid for by the government? Whoa. Now there's another group? Well, hold on. No, there's two groups. And they're like, oh, and hang on. Let me tell you about this other Jewish community in Texas. Let me tell you about this Jewish Somalian community in Columbus. Let me tell you about this. What does that do at the end of the day? Like, I understand to do racist awareness, but where it sits right now, if it's nothing's going to be acted upon, it just really kind of makes everybody mad. And perhaps in the anger of the everyday people, perhaps that will spur some kind of decision making or will harden the hearts of people who are being led by the hand to accept these things. And just wait for it. We'll deport him at some point. They're going to be saying that like 3 days before his term's over. Guys, mass deportations are still on the way. It's like, bro, you're out of office. bro, you're not going to even be there anymore. So, you know, I just see the stuff with Richard Comey and it's just like, I don't even care. You know, like sure, it's a thing and sure there's people involved and you know, what does this do? But it's all in the free speech elements. They're indicting him on the free speech. Right? Well, not to say like the, you know, a threat against somebody else, a credible threat, a credible violent threat against somebody else is not free speech, just say that. But it's all going after that. And Mark Levin today, I'm sure I can find it, we'll watch it here together. Mark Levin just going on and on about deplatforming. I don't, who cares if I deplatform a Nazi? Who cares if I deplatform a jihadi? They don't even know what the First Amendment means. And it's everything we've come to expect. These people aren't from this country. They're not of the land. And everything they believe in and worship and speak to is the opposite of that. They are only Western as so far as their feet are, meaning where they are. Their physical location on this earth is the only thing that's Western about them. It just goes on and on about deplatforming. And I do have a bad feeling, you know, when you see it, it's spoken about like by Caroline Leavitt. I don't know if you guys have been catching this. Caroline Leavitt spoke a little bit about it. You saw it from acting AG Todd Blanche. You saw it from Mark Levin. You see it from a couple other of these administration officials going on and on about how the rhetoric on X is so bad. So that was the other thing that came about this with the ballroom. So not only do they all go, we need the ballroom now, they're also going, and man, dude, did you see what the shooter wrote? The assassin almost sounded like somebody on X. Almost. Wait, what? And the way they're talking about it is as if like the people on X are worse than the literal attempted assassin. Like, I'm sorry, Todd Blanche, that like you're getting your ass reamed in the comments But that's not what we're concerned about. And Todd Blanche has been getting it, pretty highly from everybody since he's even taken over the position from Pam Bondi. And it's like, yeah, you're a bumbling idiot. You are a stooge. Of course, people are going to tell you to go run off and jump into the ocean. You're leading one of the highest offices in the land, and you are a literal stooge. Of course, people are pissed. Why would the average person not want the best of the best to fulfill these positions? This administration is anything but. This administration is a bunch of failed theater kids and a bunch of wannabe actors and a bunch of women who can't wait to get to the next dick to ride on, to ride one rung higher up on the ladder. It's disgusting. These people on X, yeah, these people who you're supposed to be working for. And as long as there's at least somebody like halfway of a mindset of caring about liberties in this country, they're going to fight to be able to tell you to their face that you are a piece of dog water. All the bitching and moaning from all these officials, all these people on X, okay. What do they say? Shut up and dribble. I really don't want to hear. I really don't hear what you want to say at the press conference, Cash. We got people arrested. Nope. All right, get out of my face. Hey, Rubio, what's that? Reasoning on the war? That's crazy. What have we been doing about we've been doing about that glyphosate executive order? Oh, still in effect? Literally don't care. Get the fuck out of my face. I think we owe it to you. It's not royalty. American politicians have only become royalty. They're not royalty. You're elected to serve the people. Let me show you a little bit of this Mark Levin clip, actually. Bring the point home on where Mark Levin's at on this. And forgive me, I saw Zach put in a few spots in there too. Let me find that. Target 8059 says, Andrew, Wilson is desperate to keep his whatever appearances. Sovereign Bra gets to criticize Trump all he wants and keep his whatever appearances because nobody cares about Sovereign Bra. I care about Sovereign Bra. I like Sovereign. I think he's a good guy. I've talked to him before. He's like one of the first kind of bigger people who even commented on my YouTube way back when. And let me find one. There was one from Bartlett, which says, I do agree with you, though. I appreciate you guys covering current events, but yes, ultimately waste of time because nothing happens and the news stories coming out are endless. It's only, I only say that not to say raising awareness is like not useful. I think raising awareness is by far, in a way, the most important thing because the more that people know and the more minds and bodies that are aware and are capable of knowing and know what to do with the information, the better. But it is just, it's very, and repetitively, I would add, defeating and disheartening that it's all for like what? And I think that is like how Nick felt. And he did talk about this last night on stream, like how close he was a month ago to quitting, because it does feel like there comes a point where maybe something will happen, but maybe not in my lifetime. I don't think that's a good enough reason to give up or quit. And especially not for him. He's the best at it. Like I think he was given the gift for a reason. This is why you do need to continue to keep doing these things. Because without you, what even happens to the movement, right? If you are the movement, what happens to it? You just can't, I think that'd be a huge negative if he did. Not to tell him what to do at all. But it is. I mean, it's just like, and there's the other element too as well, which is to say, exactly, you're spot on with that follow-up comment there. It's everything's negative. It's like there's very few positive developments here. And I try to find the positives. I try to have like the reactions and gay of the day, and and like, and never, I try not to, never black pill. Try to give the white pill. And that's like one thing I've always been good at is remaining optimistic despite other things going on. As much as that may be just the male operation in me, which is like, well, if I'm not optimistic, I'll probably just lay down and die. But I do. And when even I myself can feel it, I think that's when it's like, okay, if I'm even feeling it and I know I have a good ability to not black pill, then everyone else is probably really, really feeling it. And it's probably also guiding decisions too. But you can't be in that headspace of like, it doesn't matter, nothing matters headspace, because that's the headspace where you literally would do you will make some of the dumbest and most retarded choices in your life possible. So you need to maintain not being in that headspace and always having something to build and work towards. And at the bare minimum, it's building and working towards and maintaining for the next generation, setting up a scene or community or movement for your children to be able to ultimately be a part of, a side that they can join in, that they will ultimately not be minorities for or a part of. Myron Gaines would debate Andrew Wilson. That's interesting. I wonder if he would. Basically just give softball arguments and not offend his friend. They probably would roll out that way. I don't know how it would go. And what's the pissed off pill called? Yeah, the red pill, the rage pill. But here's Mark Levin talking about censorship. I think we're kind of getting towards the end here. I'm losing gas, if you will, to use an analogy. Apparently this sickness has just literally been something. So I hope you guys don't get it, but it has been going around. Unfortunately, my daughter has it too. This was clipped by Glenn Deason, but we'll just take a listen here because this was Mark Levin as of, I believe, yesterday.
First time things like this have happened, but it really is problematic because so much of it is protected. And you heard people say, don't you believe in the First Amendment? They don't even know what the First Amendment believes. Do you want to deplatform people? You know, the libs do that. I don't have any problem with deplatforming Nazis or jihadis. I don't have any problem with deplatforming them. What does that mean, deplatforming them? A government law? No. It means that X or Twitter or Facebook or Amazon with Twitch and so forth says, you know what? You're a lowlife. We're not paying, get off our platform. What's wrong with that? It's called private enterprise. I got no problem with that. I mean, what if they have this horrific pornography on it? Is that okay? No, it's not okay.
Pornography is not, I would not even say pornography is an expression of speech. It's definitely not political speech. And political speech should never be banned, period. Should be protected wholeheartedly. Nothing on this planet. But he's doing what the left did. What was that? 5 years ago? 6 years ago? That Twitter can do whatever it wants because it's a private enterprise. These platforms can do whatever they want because it's a private enterprise. The purpose of the system is what it does. And here we are. We've come full circle to now once they're in power and they're in charge now. The principle's out the window because it was never about that. It was never about that.
What if they have a bunch of drug addicts, shooting up all the time? Is that okay? No, that's not okay. Because our kids have access to it. People who are impressionable have access to it. What if they have people screaming at the top of the lungs saying, assassinate this guy and assassinate that guy? Well, they shouldn't do that. Why? What's the standard? You need to have a standard. What should the law be? What does the Constitution say? I just think we've taken this too far because we're not even talking about political speech, which is the most protected of all speech. We do limit speech. We limit speech, pornography. We limit speech.
Just like no sound in this? What a recording. What a clip. All right. Glenn Deason, you go into the boomer bin. He must have muted the clip, but you guys got the point there. He's making all the same arguments the left did 6 years ago that we've already moved past. And there we are. Here we go. Lovely. Wonderful. And you can see it's been clipped like all over today, all over the place. The guy's insane. Literally insane. And of course they want to. Because you can't have, you just literally can't have it. You can't have free speech. You can't have it because what ends up happening? Well, the truth may be found and people may get wind of America first. They may get wind of Laura Loomer, maybe was the first person that Trump called after bombing Iran. Might get wind of the fact that Adelson actually has her hand deep inside of Donald Trump. Much deeper than he is tall. And he's a disgusting person. And this is who supposedly is like getting reposted by, and not supposedly is being reposted by Donald Trump and saying, hey, everybody, take a listen to this guy, the great one. It makes you want to jump off a bridge at 4,000 miles an hour. It makes you want to go see if you can get to the Earth's core without safety equipment. And then everything else going on too. And so this is probably why the average American is feeling very, very jaded and angered and enraged, is because while they're watching this Mark Levin video on their iPhone, on the subway being surrounded by a bunch of smelly Indians and blacks who won't stop kicking them in the face and beating the shit out of them because they thought they might have said the N-word or something like that. They are also being told that their opinions aren't even allowed and that they're Nazis and jihadists and that Jews are going to run everything. And that's how it's going to be. So, just like, wow, dude, like who wouldn't love waking up in the morning and going and working a 12-hour shift so that all of your tax dollars could be redirected to go fund people who don't belong here and who hate you and will ultimately at a later point in time give birth to the children as the whites become a minority that will push you out, and probably if we go the South Africa direction, will probably try to hunt you down. It's just like, it's so broken. You know, MAGA's dead, but that's beating a dead horse at this point. It's more than broken. It's become something else entirely. It's not even that it's dead. It's like, what is this thing? We thought we knew what this was, but it's actually deeper inside of it. It was something much, much darker. You know, some knew much early on. Some learned way too late. So one thing I'm going to do here at the very end, there's a cool video somebody sent me. I think it was Native's friend, which I don't think he's been in the chat here today, but Native's friend did send me this. We're going to end on this on a funny note. And it's that Larry Johnson, no, not Larry Johnson, forgive me, read the wrong one. That Rock Lee gets red pilled. I thought this was kind of funny. But this video, it's on YouTube. And literally the thumbnail is Lee from Naruto. And the title says, I highly doubt it was 6 million. So this is on YouTube, so we're playing it. I think it's hilarious. And here it is. It's got like 140,000 views with like almost nearly 15,000 likes. Let's put this on screen.
All right, Lee. Good work as always. But it seems we'll have to cut our training short today.
Oh, really? What's the matter, Guy Sensei?
We're being summoned for a mission to the Hidden Sand Village.
The Hidden Sand Village?
Yes, the Kazekage has been taken hostage by the Akatsuki, and we need to help Team Kakashi rescue him.
I see.
You seem bothered by something, Lee. What's the matter?
Guy Sensei, how exactly does this benefit the Hidden Leaf Village?
What do you mean?
Well, think about it. Why are we risking our shinobi and our resources on another village that has no allegiance to us?
No allegiance? Lee, the Hidden Sand is our greatest ally.
Greatest ally? But they attacked us 3 years ago.
Yes, but that was Orochimaru who...
But they brought a tailed beast to our village.
And we dealt with it. Let bygones be bygones.
Guy Sensei, are you Konoha first?
Who made this? Dude?
Of course I am, Lee! I stand for everything that Konoha was founded upon!
Like sending our money to other villages that have no allegiance to us?
Lee, I told you the Sand Village is our greatest ally!
You keep saying that, but history has proved exactly the opposite. You say you're Konoha first, yet you parrot the propaganda spouted by the Hokage and the village elders.
And they know what's right for this village, Lee.
They know what's right? Guy Sensei, our cost of living has only...
This probably makes no sense to anybody who's not seen Naruto. So if you've not seen it, I apologize, but it's pretty good so far.
Increased since the Konoha crush 3 years ago, yet the value of the Ryo has fallen as our commissions stagnate.
That's simply how the economy works, Lee. Sometimes it goes up and sometimes it goes down. You just need to keep pulling yourself up by your, sandal straps.
I have been pulling myself up, Guy Sensei, and I've gone beyond the 8 gates.
No, don't tell me.
That's right! I've reached the 9th gate of noticing!
Lee, you can't!
Haven't you noticed, Guy Sensei? Do you ever wonder how most of the Hokages tend to come from the Senju clan?
That's...
Senju Hashirama, Senju Tobirama, Senju Tsunade, and if you really think about it, Sarutobi Hiruzen was just a puppet of the Senju clan. The 4th Hokage was an outsider who helped end the 3rd Great Shinobi War, but of course, he just happened to pass away early due to an unprecedented incident.
You know that was because an Uchiha controlled the Ninetales to attack the village.
And that's what the Senju want you to think, Guy Sensei, because of course the Uchiha would be behind it. Uchiha this, Uchiha that.
Don't you remember what they did in the 2nd Great Shinobi War?
What? That they orchestrated a genocide against the Senju?
Yes, they massacred over 600,000 Senju. Don't you remember that from the academy?
I highly doubt they murdered 600,000 Senju. Don't you realize how many bodies that would be, Guy Sensei?
Well,
So, there you go. That's funny. I think everybody kind of got the point there. But thank you for sending me that. That was from Nativist Friend. And yeah, I encourage anybody, if you find the video, I prefer that they're like under like 20 minutes because like if I react to it or I do a meaningful react to something, it typically makes it like twice as long. So a 20-minute video turns into 40 minutes, so on and so on. But I encourage that. That's why we have the Discord set up too. There is a section in the Discord for clip submissions and things of that nature. So definitely send anything like that, especially for like YouTube videos. And like I've been saying too, I definitely want to do a good bit more of like reaction content. It's easy and it's what a lot of people do. I just have always just not done it for the most part. But it works, it's efficient, and also it kind of operates as a guest. You know, having a video to respond to, it's like, you know, somebody says something in the video, like we did with the Lawrence Southern one, for example, right? Being able to pause it and respond to things being said inside the video. That's kind of like my idea with doing the React stuff there too. And but yeah, definitely send that in the Discord. If you've not joined already, the description is not in the description, but it is in chat. Tix Farmer just put it in there. So if you do want to join, definitely click on that link and join. Just basic rules, obviously. No blaspheming our Lord Jesus Christ, or you will be gone in a heartbeat. But that basically wears all I wanted to cover for the show. I guess I will summarize because I did miss the themes. I wanted to reiterate the themes here. It's what I typically kind of break down the show into: themes, topics, react, announcements, all of that. For the themes, I would say this. There's three kind of big ones that I would put here. Where it says Atlas will watch reboot. If you know computer technology, there are a ton of inside jokes. Okay, I'm down. I'm down to watch it. I need something to watch that my wife would find boring. Because too many of our shows are like hour shows. So if I want something to watch by myself, like late at night while I'm working or doing something dumb, it's like I can't watch that. It's like, dang. Like, no, I can't watch that. I don't want to get ahead of her. Anyways, I think that the first theme is that the new news cycle has dropped. I think this is what the new news cycle is. I think that you're going to see a lot of this with Tim Pool and Steven Crowder. I think that they got their barking orders. Tim Pool had on Randy Fine a few days ago, which I was able to catch portions of that. It was hilarious because they restricted their comments to like subscribers only mode, which was crazy. Then he's also kind of gone on the bit of a Israel derangement syndrome bin, like he did about a year ago, 2 years ago. Maybe it's even been longer than that. Steven Crowder did similar, posting like an 11-minute video defending Trump and then going at the Israel derangement syndrome individuals, and it basically was like the same exact thing. Tim Pool even today posted something to the effect of Israelcast IRL, and he like posted a changed logo of Timcast IRL, but it had like the Israeli flag in it. Somebody commented and said, "You got to commit more to the bit," and then added him like with the Orthodox Jewish wear and the curls. I thought that was hilarious. The White House Correspondents' Dinner, in my opinion, has opened a new can, or rather, this is probably a better way to say it. It's opened a new line of credit for the conspiracy theorist. So it was getting dry on the Candace Owens and the Erica Kirk and the Charlie conspiracy. And so it's kind of like resetting the clock. I think with the White House Correspondents' Center, there's going to be a lot of the rabbit holers and the conspiracy theorists, tinfoil hat individuals. So it's basically like they just got their credit line re-upped. They paid off the bill. They got a full another 15 grand to go spend. So I would expect that we're going to see more of that, more just like kind of maybe insane things being talked about with that. Perhaps maybe next to Tucker Carlson's next guest will be talking about what they saw at the ballroom, actually. And I would say for the most part, I think it shows you just how desensitized everyone's becoming to caring about anything at all. I think the average person, many people felt that way when Nick said, "Does anyone else just not care about the assassination attempt?" I believe it was the first thing that Anthony Tony said to me in the Discord as well. I think many of you agree with him. Like, who even cares? Who gives an F? One way or the other, like, it wasn't successful. It's just more hodgepodge. And it ends with not getting anything that we voted for. So, like, what even is there? Like, who really honestly cares at the end of the day? And I don't think anybody's obviously wishing for it to happen by any means at all, disavow violence. But again, nothing ever happens and you just go, okay. The last thing I would add, though, is I do think that for the majority of people, the perception that this entire thing going off the rails, and when I say thing, I mean like the political space, the American politics, everything that is and would probably fall in a more robust or comprehensive definition of this space, our politics, is the fact that it's very clear that whatever your opinions are on Charlie Kirk or what you think happened, one thing is very objectively true, and it is that like he was clearly a stopgap for something. And with him out of the picture, it has felt like we have had no semblance of normativity since that's happened. And even now that we're almost a year removed from it, has it even been a year? I don't know how long it's been. It's been a while. But we're getting very close to it being about a year, if not longer, that it's something was clearly being held up by him, you know, where he was preventing some forces from acting, or he was, you know, just some kind of, you know, I guess, you know, plug, if you will, for lack of better words. And I think that's going to get harder and harder and harder to deny for anybody, to be honest with you, the more that we maintain this kind of insane pace of insanity, chaos, and the infighting and the explosive just betrayal left and right. But with all that being said, you know, it is always darkest before the dawn. Just because things are rough don't mean that they are going to be rough all the time. And I would also say additionally too, like, these are the moments where you have to really kind of dig your feet in and hold your lines, you know, hold the line. Because this is when I think a lot of people in these lull kind of periods fall asleep. They don't pay attention. They don't really know what's coming next. And I think it's in all of the escapism, all the different distractions that we have. It makes it very easy to do that. But I would say, regardless of how bad it seems, you can never black pill. You just can't. I mean, you just can't. I mean, black pilling is the equivalent of giving up. And what's gayer than giving up? What is more worthless and a walk away than giving up? Like, God didn't breathe life into you to give up and spend the last 25 years of your life being a miserable, sad old man, angrily talking to yourself in the bottom of a basement. No, he breathed life into you so that you could spread the good word, so that you could worship and honor and live in the living word, and you could know him and you could understand him. Not completely, but to save more souls and get more souls to Jesus Christ. So at the bare minimum, that's what you should be striving for. At the bare minimum. And so, again, enough also too, if you're feeling like you're blackpilling, I think you probably should be taking it upon yourself to be praying. You need to be spending time in prayer, not these like, throw it up in a couple seconds and I just close my eyes and say something like, no, like separate yourself into a room by yourself and get on your knees and pray to our Savior, our Lord Jesus Christ, and actually pray and talk and speak and spend time. Not to doing it to check it off a box, but because you actually want to hear what he has to say. Not what you want to hear, what you think he would say, what you want him to say, but what he actually has to say. That's probably where I'll leave it. I do appreciate everybody for being here, as always. It's always a good time when I get to see you guys. It's always a good time to stream and talk and do the show. Just unfortunate to be sick, especially with as sick as I get too. It's actually an extreme annoyance. It's really irritating. I try not to let it bother me too much, wholeheartedly. But I appreciate everybody for being here. Unsure when the next stream will be. There's actually a couple things in the background that are happening that I don't even think I'm at liberty to say. So I will just leave it at that. There's some things going on. And again, I have the work life going on. I have the family stuff going on. Trust me, there's a lot of things happening in the back end here. So I will do my best to try to stream as much as I can this week, but no guarantees because there's some stuff happening and I don't know when I might be called to do something or when I need to go do a meeting or et cetera, et cetera. And funny enough that Smelly Ball says this, it may very soon come to a point where Josh is going to have to carry NAV. And that's probably all that I'm at liberty to, it is all I'm at liberty to say. So there's some stuff happening in the background and we'll see where it goes. But again, you guys know how this stuff works. Sometimes you just got to keep your mouth shut until you get to where you're at. You know, the butterfly effect and all that, you know, you guys know. But I'm okay. With that, I guess we'll look forward to the Democrats winning in 2026. We will happily watch as Hakeem Jeffries and whoever else they decide will be in there, and we will watch as they run through impeachments, hopefully. Investigations, oversight committees, all of it. Love to see it. Let's see some actuality. And hey, even if it's only Republicans who go to prison for Epstein file stuff, I'll take it because they deserve it. Literally don't care. So, I appreciate everybody. Again, as always, Christ is King. Make sure you smash a like button if you've not already. Subscribe, obviously, and share the show if you think someone else could benefit from it, or if you think that you just want to share this show because you think I am retarded. I'll take it either way. A share is a share. Share is a share. And I'm excited for what's to come, man. I really am. I'm excited to stay in this. And as much as I get blackpilled, what else would I be doing? All I do is speak, breathe, and eat politics. That's the only thing that even like it exudes out of my characters. I can't even have real conversations with anybody without bringing something up that most of the time puts me in a bad position. But it is what it is, and I'm a tough guy. I'm an old man. I can handle myself. But I appreciate you guys. I'm rooting for all of you, and I am pushing you. I'm not even encouraging you. I am pushing you, imploring you, telling you to open your Bibles, read the Bible, be in prayer, go to church. Be a Christian. So with all that, we can't do the deportations because they're off the table, and because this conservative and this Republican movement is a joke and it is worthless. So we can't do deportations, but we might be able to get the Democrats to give us some impeachments. So with that, impeach the entire administration. I'm cool with it. I don't care. All of them. Do everybody. Spider Cash can go first. That's cool with me. And any woman over 150 pounds, forgive me, we're not changing it. Any woman over 150 pounds going to get shot from Canada to Israel. And any woman under 150 and above 100, I'm butchering this so bad, guys. You got to give me a break. This is your 90-day notice to lose the weight. I'm struggling to finish this. But I appreciate you all. I will see you guys next time. And hopefully I will see you guys likely tomorrow, but we'll see. Take care, everybody. Have a good night.
Get up and get out. Get out. Get out.
I have a question for you.
Say Christ is Lord. Say Christ is Lord. Say it. You say Christ is Lord. Get out.